Hi there, it's Blue Bear and Reed from Blue Bear Quilts, and today I want to show you a couple techniques for making the pastel clover block. This block is our free block of the month for Quilt Block Mania for the month of February, and I want to show you in today's video a couple techniques for making this block. One will be using the folded corners clipper tool in order to make these folded corners, and then the other will be how to get a nice flat seam whenever you're putting a 4-patch together. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how to use the folded corner clipper ruler by Creative Grids in order to create folded corners off of a rectangle or what would look like a chisel unit. So the first thing we have to do is we have to place our squares right side down on top of the other piece. So this is a 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle, which is right side up, and this is a 2.5 by 2.5 inch square, which is right side down. So the right sides are facing each other, and we want to get that perfectly lined up. And then we take, and you'll see that on the ruler there's a 2.5 inch line, so this is the size we're working with, 2.5. So we're going to put that line on the bottom of our square. We're also going to line up right over here where there's a corner. We're going to put that corner on the corner of the square. And then we want this to be flush with the top. So that looks pretty good. And now I have it on a smaller mat, or you could use a rotating mat so that I can turn this. I'm left-handed, and I want to be able to do it on this side since I'm left-handed. So you get it in place, you hold it down. You can do a back cut if you want, and then go forward, clip that piece off. I happen to need 2 for this, so I'll do that one more time. Do it with this piece. Again, get it perfectly lined up. And then we're going to take and line up the 2.5 inch line right there on the bottom. Get this corner lined up at the corner of the square, and then this piece should be right up at the top here. So see, it's perfectly lined up. The edge of the 2.5 inch line is along the edge of the square. This corner is on the square, and this upper edge is on this corner of the square as well. Then we hold it down and we cut. There we go. So now we have one going this direction, but I also need mirror images. I need the angle to go the other direction. So now I'm going to show you how to do that. So now, in order to get the angle going this way, we have to take and put this 2.5 inch line over on the right side of our square and get this lined up in the corner, and then we're going to line up this corner on the ruler like that, and we're going to cut. And so now you'll notice that we have one going each direction, which will give us mirror images. So I'll do that one more time. Again, we want our squares perfectly lined up with the bottom piece. They're facing right sides together. We now take the 2.5 inch line and we put it over here on the line like that. We get this corner lined up there. And we're going to cut along like that. Hold the ruler in place and then cut. And there we go. We have 2 sets facing one direction and 2 sets facing the other direction. Now you will take and sew them 1/4 inch away from this cut line, and I'll show you what that looks like next. So here's how we've sewn it. You'll notice that the stitches go in right at the beginning of that corner, 1/4 inch along there, and they come out this other corner. Then you take and you set it with your iron and press it open like that, and here's what it ends up looking like. So that's your little folded corner that looks like a chisel unit, and then here is one of the units that is the mirror image. And so those are your folded corners, and how you can make them with the Creative Grids folded corner clipper ruler. So another technique that's helpful in making the pastel clover block is making 4 patches and swirling that intersecting seam on the back so that it lies nice and flat. So in order to make the 4 patch, you have your 4 squares, and then you take and you're going to sew 2 of them together at a time at 1/4 inch. So we've sewn those, and then between these 2, the green is the darker, so you're going to press to the dark, and in order to do that, you have the dark on top. You take your iron and you press the seam flat, and then you take and fold it over like this and iron it in place. Fold this one over, so both of those have been pressed to the dark. Now as we're forming a 4 patch, we put them opposite each other, put it like this, and you'll notice how when you do that, see how this is leaning toward, this has been pressed over towards the green, and this has also been pressed over towards the green. So those 2 seams will nest up right next to each other, and you can actually feel that with your finger, is that they nest, and so you get them all nice and lined up, and then you're going to stitch 1/4 inch along there, and when you've done that, this is what it looks like. So again, we've got the green pressed over that way. When we press to the green, it's over towards the pink, and same thing on this one, it's over to the pink, and those 2 seams are nested. You can see how they're nested together. So then again, we're going to take and set this seam now, and we're going to press it open like this. And when we do that, you can see how this is kind of raised up there. It's kind of fat, and then on the back here, you have all these seams coming together, and it creates that thick intersection there, which is okay, but like for your long arm quilters, they like to have it be nice and flat, and so you can get it nice and flat by removing that. So this is a technique that I learned from my good friend Eleanor Burns many years ago, and you can use it anytime you have to have 4 sections coming together. So it can be 4 pieces of a block, like in a 4 patch, or it can be 4 blocks that go together, anytime you want to flatten this intersecting seam. So what you do is you put it on the back, and then you have 1 seam going, you're going to take and push 1 seam this way, and take and push the other seam the other way. So I'm going to push this one down and this one that way, and that opens up that seam, and then you take your iron and you press it nice and flat, and see how it makes that cute little 4 patch in the middle. And here I've got one where it's all pressed, and see it's nice and flat. You can smush that down, and it just creates a nice flat block. So if for some reason as you're doing this, when you're trying to push it opposite directions, if for some reason it won't come out, then you take your seam ripper, which I've got to get one here. And there will be stitches like right here that go down to this stitch line, and you would just basically pick out this stitch and this stitch down to this stitch line, and the same thing on this side. If there were any stitches here, you would pick out these stitches down to the stitch line, and then that will help you open this up so that it will lay nice and flat and create that little 4 patch in the back. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video on how to make the pastel clover block, and that you've learned a way of creating these folded corners and how to make them a mirror image, and also that you've learned a way of swirling the background where all of these seams come together so that you can have a nice flat 4 patch. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.